Good morning to everyone. We'll go around and do some introductions, but I wanted to get started. We do our thing on Saturday here in Santa Clarita. We're made possible by our friends at Green Geeks. So welcome. Today's a special meetup for a number of reasons. It's sort of every now and then I'd start thinking about how special it is for me to run into so many people in this community. And today we're going to sort of talk about how one person has affected our community in a great way, so much so that I pitched a panel idea for the upcoming WordPress Accessibility Day on November 2nd, and they accepted it. So a few of us are going to get together in a more global format to talk about this person. So that's what part of this meetup is about today. And it's really just to, again, continue this thing that we have going up here where all these interesting people are getting together and learning and growing and caring about each other. So we're going to do that after we get into some introductions. So let's go around. Let's start with the folks that jumped on later, and we'll go around the room and just introduce yourself, say hello to folks. Most of us know each other. For the new people, it's good to introduce yourself, your connection to WordPress, and your interest in today's meeting. Let's start with Eagle.
I'm in Santa Cruz, and I do the Santa Cruz WordPress Meetup and the San Jose WordPress Meetup. And I, to quote a friend of ours, dabble in WordPress. I do design development and a lot of maintenance. I do monthly contracts, and I do high performance hosting using GridPane and cloud servers.
Awesome. All right, and Sally jumped on late, but we're glad to have her. Hey, Sally, what's up?
Not too much. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. This community has meant, I was off, but I was listening. This community has just meant so much to me. And it's been an amazing 2 years. And Joe, did you have to write anything for Master WP about your experience at WordCamp?
Well, it was offered as an option, but as you know, I'm just way too busy to follow through on some of that stuff.
Well, I finally did, and it was really just like an homage, like to this group and everyone that's just been a part of my journey. They published it this week. I put it in Slack, but if anyone...
I was gonna say, why don't you share it in the chat?
Yeah, I gotta find it. So
just read it. It was great, Sally.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you see you in there?
Yeah, you know, like most people, when your face or name is mentioned, it's like jumps out at you off the page. But I was reading your entire essay, and it was I thought it was great. You expressed your experience so well. And then I did see the acknowledgement towards the end. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I couldn't put everyone's name because I didn't want it to be an advertisement for the WordCamp, the Northern Meetups, right?
Yeah, so again, you said you've been in WordPress 2 years. What's your connection to today's meetup? Or
well, when COVID hit and everything for me stopped, I was like, okay, now I have time to finally build my website because I do digital marketing. And I went to Mike Pilley's meetup in Bakersfield. And when we could ask questions, my first question was, can you please tell me about accessibility? Because some of the developers I'd previously worked with, I had asked them about it, and they said it wasn't important and don't worry about it. And then you happened to be on there and invited me to that mega meetup that Saturday, August 20th, August 8th, 2020, which started my accessibility journey. And it's like been like more than I ever imagined, thanks to all of you guys. So I'm here. I spoke at WordCamp US as a first-time speaker. Joe, you organized everything for WordPress Accessibility Day. I call you my guiding light. And now I'm ready to dive deeper into the code and learn all of that now that I kind of have like a 360 view of everything.
And it's sort of full circle, because for this year's WordPress Accessibility Day, we have a few of the people that spoke then that are coming back to participate in this panel. And 2 years ago, Alicia, Sumner, and myself, we did the mega meetup that you were referring to. For those that don't know, we did meetup simultaneously, back to back to back, almost 2 years ago, where Sumner brought in these incredible speakers, and we all talked about accessibility and promoted the event. So this meetup today sort of talks about that, but it also honors a person who's been very critical to all of this accessibility learning we've been doing out here. So Lynn, go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Lynn Nishihara. You probably heard that phrase, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm droop-eyed and bushy-haired. I've been awake since, well, I was awake until like 3, maybe 4 a.m. That's why I'm a mess right now and I'm not on camera.
Okay. No problem.
The thing that brought me to WordPress was during the pandemic. It seemed like a good idea, I guess, to examine things because I wanted to set up my own website. And then I found you guys and thought that you were amazing. And I haven't stopped since. And I'm now the website administrator for airsla.org. And I'm trying to do improvements to the site that if I were a user, this is what I'd want to see. And I guess I am a user also. And the thing that specifically brought me here was because it's preliminary to the next WordCamp accessibility thing. And Alicia is here. And I know that she's really big on coding and things like that. And I'm getting into that part too.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to congratulate you too. Just an FYI, as part of our panel, I did mention, or I put up a screenshot of you announcing that you got that job as, doing WordPress accessibility for your company, which is pretty amazing that, you worked there and you stepped up and said, hey, I think I could do this WordPress thing. So, and you're going to influence them in terms of accessibility. So that's
actually,
awesome.
I'm volunteering. It's not a paid gig.
Okay. Either way, it's still a job.
Yeah, it is a job. And they asked me to join them because I mentioned that I was going to these WordPress meetups. And they wanted somebody that had WordPress knowledge, maybe not experience, but at least knowledge. And you guys have done great because I was able to step in and I do understand what they're trying to do. And I also see where it can be improved. Awesome.
Awesome. All right, Peter, welcome and introduce yourself.
Hi, I work for a company, actually it's a company, a friend of mine, and we publish music education software. And so we have a website that we use WordPress, someone else set it up and I'm maintaining it. And accessibility, I'm coming primarily because our application, which is a app installed on Mac and Windows computers, people have talked about making it, accessible. And so I started looking into this whole subject matter, a couple of years ago, and it's very difficult. And because most of the information talks about websites and what to do on websites, and very little on applications that are not websites. And so I'm just trying to glean all the information I can get from wherever it comes. And so that's my interest in this, as well as WordPress itself.
All right, thanks, Peter, and welcome. Shaza, our extended family is here. I think one of the cool things about knowing you is that you were so enthusiastic here locally, and then when you went back to New York, you still stayed in touch. So and that's the great thing about the pandemic. We've been able to stay in touch virtually.
Yeah, I'm Shannon Shaza, and Shaza's a nickname that was given to me many years ago. But apparently it's a nickname for Shannons and Sharons in Britain. And I used to have a bunch of Brits working for me when I was managing artists. So that's where the Shaza came from. I, at the tender young age of 50 something, started to pivot out of the fashion industry and went to coding boot camp. And then one thing led to another, and I moved to California for a couple of years. And while I was in California, I started maintaining the site where my art studio was, and it was a hot mess. And I found the WordPress Meetup through the interface. And I started going to Santa Clarita. It was like hour and 15-minute drive, hour and a half over to Santa Clarita from Ventura. And I found a community that was unlike any I had found since moving to California. And that started my in earnest WordCamp adventure. I think I went to WordCamp before I actually started going to the meetups.
Ooh.
I went to the Santa Clarita WordCamp, and I was so inspired. I mean, the first speaker of the day, Jason, can't remember his last name,
Oriano.
was presenting on Elementor. And I was like, oh, I think I can do this. So here it is, XYZ years later. I work as a WordPress junior dev for an agency based in Brooklyn. We do enterprise level websites. My slice of the pie is very small. I call myself the assembler. It's like a Taco Bell. I'm not cooking the meat. I don't chop the tomatoes. I'm not even great. Well, my boss says I'm starting to grade the cheese, but I get the site in however it's going to come to me. The last one came in InDesign. I can't even get it open on my computer. Sometimes it's Figma. I love it when they come to me in Figma, but everything's already been done because it's enterprise level. And yeah, so right now I'm working on 2 sites. One of them's a consulting company and the other's a hedge fund. And that's how I make my money now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And then, I'm sort of a wannabe foodie, and they call it an expediter, person that they don't cook it, but they make sure it gets to the table hot and then correctly.
Oh, but I'm not even the person delivering it. I'm the one in the kitchen, like putting I'm building the taco. I think I forgot that part of my analogy. I'm the one that's putting the meat in the shell, but I didn't cook the meat.
Well, I didn't eat a full breakfast today, so I'm very hungry. So this food analogy
Sorry about that.
is destroying me right now. All right, Larry, you're next up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Larry. I'm a white guy with glasses and a big schnoz. I have sun-bleached hair. Actually, it's gray, but I would rather call it sun-bleached. It makes me feel better about myself. As far as the whole WordCamp accessibility thing, I joined up when Lynn joined up, and we both got into this together. And I work for Lynn now, only I'm her driver. I don't do any, she's doing all the web work, but I drive her around wherever she needs to go. And that's pretty much my story here. I'm here to learn and network and meet people and get good ideas, and I'm trying to build some websites myself and just learning a little bit at a time while I'm doing, all kinds of other stuff. I'm a guitar teacher and a musician. I also give guitar lessons on Zoom. I have one student right now, but he's taking a little break. So, I kind of have like 0 students, even though he is going to come back and take more lessons. And that's my story. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Awesome. And next up is someone that's super awesome. I saw her on stage at WordCamp Los Angeles, and it made me want to speak. And every time I see her speak, I get inspired because she makes development sound doable. You can unmute and jump on now, Alicia.
I didn't say the name. I was like, I guess he's talking about me.
There's only one person that fits that description.
So I am Alicia. I am a copper woman with freckles, and today I put some dark eyeshadow on because we're so close to Halloween, and I have this little hat on that reminds Sumner of Men in Black, but it's actually like a woolen hat with 2 little whatever they're called, things hanging off the sides. Okay. So I started my whole what were the questions we were supposed to be answering? Because
Well, it's open. It's sort of your connection to WordPress and to this
My connection to
and,
WordPress.
and this
Oh.
meetup today. But you can take it
connection to
anywhere.
WordPress. Okay, so I actually I started off with the static HTML sites. Some are still up on the internet, like my art site, which I'm ashamed. The only thing that saves it is the art that I produced. And then I was working on other people's a few sites, and a friend of mine told me about this thing called WordPress. This was like 2007, I think. 2007, 2008. So I took a look at it and I put my own blog up. I thought, oh, that's cool. Actually, I had done that first. And then my friend said, but you can do websites in there. I'm like, I can. And so then I found this article. The guy was already AWOL. It was called, So You Want to Make Your Own Theme from Scratch. Thank God I found that, because I love doing things from scratch. I don't like having it already done. And so then I could learn. And so I did. Got a book on HTML and stuff. I had that already a little bit under my belt, but I found this guy named Justin Tadlock in Theme Hybrid. That was really helpful. And then for a while, I just kind of like did my own thing. And then one night, I was wandering around and I saw WordCamp. I was like, what's a WordCamp? That's really weird. And then I went to it and I saw WordCamp Orange County. And then the next day was the last day to apply to speak. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I was just like, I'm gonna apply to speak to this thing. So I sent off I sent it off, and I was gonna do a talk called Make WordPress Fit the Cinderella Shoe Approach to Custom Theming, because that's how I do it. I make sure everybody gets exactly what they want, and that way I keep growing for every project. I never try to fit them into like one of the other stepsister's shoes. So anyway, I got accepted, and it turns out that doesn't usually happen. Like your first time you apply and you've never spoken, that you get that. So I was kind of like, what? And they just liked my my personality. And that started, my first speaking started off, I wanted to entertain people. So I had like glitter on my face, and the whole talk was a Cinderella themed slides, and I just threw it all together. And then from that, I always themed my talks, because why would you bore someone to tears if you really want them to get the information? And so they often place me out for lunch.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
So anyway, I've spoken to maybe like 7 or 8, even a unicorn headdress. I've done the whole thing. And I found Joe's meetup from the accessibility, the combination. And I'm not sure if I found your meetup first, or did we do the rally? We did the rally after I found your meetup, right? Okay. And then I ended up doing the air rally with Joe and Sumner, and it was just amazing. And Sumner, like, I guess it's kind of like with Sally, I didn't know too much about accessibility. I knew that it was important, and I tried what little bit I knew to make it. But Sumner came to one of my online meetups earlier in the pandemic. I believe it was in March or April, she's 2020, and she was the only one there. So I was like a captive audience to, oh my God, I had no idea. And then that moment, something just stirred in me, and I was just like, I can't be a part of like someone shutting someone out. So I was just like, oh man. And then every project I was working on, and I often work on more than one at a time, just stalled and so that every time I moved from that moment on in those projects, I was addressing accessibility, and kind of had to go back. But yeah, so that's my dealio. And I have my own agency. I really, really, really focus on that. I bring it up everywhere I go. Accessibility.
Well, you saw me gesturing feverishly in the background. I was hoping you wouldn't say part of the panel. I interviewed quite a few people about their feelings towards Sumner, and I thought you were going to spoil what I have a clip.
Oh, hell no.
I had a clip I was going to show today. And I was like, please don't say it. Please don't say it.
No, I do this all the time. I talk about Sumner all the time.
All right.
I know, my ears are constantly burning.
I'm like, the Sumner Net Report is the one that got me started.
Yeah, and my name's Joe Simpson. I'm a light-skinned African-American male with a baseball cap and wireframe glasses on and a beard. I met Sumner in, I think, January of 2018. I was looking for speakers to present at WordCamp Santa Clarita, and I saw in the meetup listing that there was someone speaking on accessibility at the West Hills Meetup. And the great thing about that is that I was inspired so much, but also someone punched me during the presentation that she was giving because it had moved them so much. they were like, oh, accessibility makes me so mad. And it inspired something that I presented on later. But to know Sumner is to know that she's going to bring that level of energy and thought-provoking content that's going to make you want to do something. So with that, I want to introduce our last speaker. I want to have her unmute and share a little bit about herself. But what I was trying to do with this, and I wanted to make sure that you knew how much I cared about what you've done for me personally, as well as the people that you've come across in our community since that day in 2018. So Sumner, please unmute and introduce yourself.
Well, I guess you all know who I am by now. And for those that can't see me, I'm a fair-skinned female, sometimes an adult. I play one from time to time. I have red hair and I have the personality that does match that. So I don't know really what can be said after everything that's been said. My journey of accessibility has been a lifelong project. And my journey with web accessibility has been for the last dozen years or so. The meetup where I met Joe, previous to making that presentation, I have been talking to businesses directly about their websites. I have been at business convention, meeting planners conventions, legal conventions as a speaker to talk about web accessibility long before COVID, long before we started seeing it become such an important topic as we do get today. And then those businesses would go home and yell at their web designer. And then those web designers would send me a nasty email. And so I thought, well, you know, I'm telling these people as nicely as I can that their websites really need to be fixed, but obviously somebody's offended in this presentation. Let me go directly to the web designers. And then that didn't seem to make much difference at that time. But then along the way, I met people who were interested and who did get involved. And one of them was at the West Hills Meetup. And someone actually got a hold of me and said, you really need to attend this meetup on WordPress. And I go, why? And they said, well, you work on WordPress, you talk about compliance issues, not just accessibility, but there's a lot of different things with compliance. Come talk. So I went and I spoke, and the topic title was Compliance, Traps, and Trolls. And that's when I met Joe. And I even got pushback from that meetup from some of the people that were attending, not Joe. Joe was one of the people that really supported what I was saying and asked the right questions. But there were people that fought back even then. I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. It's too hard. Forget it. It's not worth it. I mean, the responses. And I know that people still hear those today, which is a whole nother topic. However, it is my mission and it is my specialty. I do not call myself an expert, never have, and I don't ever expect to, but I do specialize in making the web as accessible to persons with disability as possible. And I believe that it is possible if you start with accessibility in mind and work from that point instead of, oh gosh, now I have to fix something. And I do not care for the false information that's placed out there. I do not care for the false fixes that people are marketing so heavily. And I certainly don't care for the trolls that are making it really hard for people to comply. In fact, someone gave me a moniker this week. They gave me a t-shirt, which I haven't yet worn. It's called Troll Destroyer. So if educating people in advance helps eliminate the trolls, then great, because I do say that the reason that the trolls continue what they're doing is they've got food, and that food that they're thriving on is non-accessible websites. But if suddenly there was no food, they'd have to go away, and that's my goal. Let's starve them. Let's get rid of all the things they're feeding on. Let's help people understand not only what is accessibility, but why is it important. Every single one of us is going to be disabled someday. Every one of us. If we haven't already experienced it in our lifetime, it's just a natural course of life, either by age, by accident, by illness. Something is going to cause us to have a disability, albeit it may be temporary, like some people who have shoulder surgery, but like Joe did recently. It could be a friend of mine is dealing with post-COVID and she still has cognitive issues. She is not the person she was before, and this may be a long-term disability for her. So we don't know what the future holds for everyone, but at some point we will become part of that group, and people in the community of those with disabilities, the numbers grow every day, every year. So it's not just a small community that anybody should ignore, because I heard someone say one time that it is a community that anybody can join at any time, and that's ever so true. And so if we don't do it for them, let's do it for ourselves. So if we don't want to do it to take care of others, be selfish.
And you
And
mentioned,
I'll get off my soapbox.
and I was gonna say, you mentioned alt fixes for those that don't know what that means.
I'm sorry, Joe.
You mentioned alt fixes during your.
So the false fixes, the fake fixes,
Mhm,
those are the promises made by overlays. Those anybody that says that they can fix a website with one line of code, anybody that knows code should immediately recognize that that's not a possibility. That's like saying, today I would like to drop 20 pounds from my body, so I will take a pill and tomorrow I'll be skinny. Doesn't happen that way. And there was a time in my past that I was heavy, and I used to wear black clothing because I thought it'd make me look thinner. Well, that was an illusion. It was a fake look. And underneath, I was still a person that had excess weight on my body. Those fake solutions are the same thing. They're just going to coat the outside of the website to give it a false appearance. They're not fixing anything. In fact, we have persons with disabilities that tell us on a regular basis that if you add one of those overlays to your website, you're making their life worse. You are intentionally making their life worse. So you can't claim, oh, I didn't know, if you're intentionally doing it. So that's it. The other thing too is there are a couple of good plugins. WordPress Accessibility is a good plugin, but it doesn't do all the work. So if you only install that plugin, you're still not doing the necessary work. So there are steps to it, but there is no magic pill.
Perfect. All right. So thanks everyone for the introduction, and thanks Sumner for that information. Now it's kind of hard to transition back to these slides, unfortunately.
Well, Joe, before you do, can I just say one thing,
Sure.
please? So, because there's a lot of regulars on here too, but because of Sumner's mentorship, three things have happened to me. I now add accessibility to my digital marketing. It's the only website I'll build. I sold my first website 3 weeks ago. I had a conversation with a nonprofit to remediate their site. They just paid $4,500 a month ago for a new website, and the company told them that it was accessible because they built it on WordPress. And then because of all Sumner and everyone here, I was able to stop a woman, Karen, from selling overlays, because that's how she was going to get into accessibility. So those are just huge scorecards for me. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, and that's sort of what our discussion is going to be about on the second during WordPress Accessibility Day. It's like we've all been impacted by her message, by Sumner's message, and it's how we've all gone about making impacts in different ways, and they're all pretty impactful. If you wanted to follow our meetup, these are some places you could find us on all social media platforms. Generally, WordPress SCV will get you there. I always start our meetup with this. And I would say over our 5 years, we haven't really had someone we've had to boot out of here because they're being a jerk, but these are the 5 good faith rules WordPress meetup should follow. It's basically be nice to each other. We're here to learn. We're not here to put each other down. We're not here to be jerks. You can find us when you log into the WordPress admin. In the back end, you'll see meetups listed here. It's also a good resource to find news that's going on in WordPress, as well as a couple of popular blogs that cover WordPress. They're in that feed as well. And you can find out when WordCamps are coming as well. I can share these slides afterwards. I tried to embed some links in it, but really today is sort of an open discussion about WordPress Accessibility Day and what that effort entailed. But it really is a discussion. It's sort of a celebration. Again, I mentioned we're sponsored by Green Geeks, so I usually pop in a couple of slides for them. And then I usually start with some news and notes. Congratulations are in order. Our community is doing a lot of great things, and I don't know if you know about it. So I meant to push this out in our pre-meetup email, but I didn't have a chance to. Sally mentioned that she wrote an article for Master WP, but as part of WordCamp US, Adam Silver asked me, "Hey, do you know any first-time WordCampers that are at US that I could be on my podcast?" And I sent a couple of people his way. And in this slide deck, Sally was featured on Kitchen Sink WP. I'm connected to Adam Silver, sort of like I'm connected to Alicia. I volunteered for Adam when Adam lead organized WordCamp Los Angeles. And we've been in touch ever since. We're sort of good friends. And Alicia, and I'm sorry, Sally was on that podcast, and I thought she was going to spoil what she said during her introduction, because it sort of covers some of the things that she mentioned, but not everything. So that's a good listen for you, as well as on Meetup today. Alicia and Sumner were part of WordPress Accessibility Day in 2020, and they're going to join me as part of a panel this year to talk about how our community has grown in terms of accessibility and the impact of Sumner. So before we move forward, Alicia, what were your thoughts about presenting a couple years ago and the WordPress Accessibility Day for those that may not know what it is?
Oh yeah. Okay. First of all, it was online, and that was really cool. I like the idea that it's online because it can go 24/7, and you can drop in whenever you want. It was really, really informative. And it runs the gamut from beginner level stuff to like the PDF guy, where I'm like, seriously, did not. But to be fair, I was able to create an accessible README document. It only had like a few words in it, but because of like, I got at least like a nano bit of information I could understand from him to do that. So yeah, it's wonderful. It's packed full of stuff, and it gives you kind of like a buffet of what's going on in the accessibility world, and you will get inspired. You'll get inspired by someone doing that event.
And what's awesome is that it's over 24 straight hours, so it travels through every time zone in the world. I think we're first up this year. So Alicia, unfortunately, you're going to be at 1 o'clock Pacific time, but that's early.
Is that 1 a.m. or 1 p.m.?
It's 1 p.m., but it's early in terms of the event. Like we're the third presentation, so technically you're at the beginning of this. And Sumner, what about you? One thing that I really enjoyed was that I got to I was behind the scenes. I was a volunteer wrangler and an MC, and I got to introduce both Alicia and Sumner. Sumner, the cool thing about your presentation that I guess on the fly, the title changed, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, people that get to know me, first off, I can be extremely serious. I'm the person that I would go out and see a client, because many of my clients are attorneys, and I would have on the appropriate suit, so I was the serious. But people that get to know me know that I have a pretty colorful personality. So my original title was serious. And when I was practicing the night before, one of my friends said, "That doesn't sound like you at all. We need to change the title, if nothing else." And so that's where, instead of it being a very serious title about how to make money with WordPress and accessibility, it became Show Me the Money. And anybody that saw that movie, my friend started dancing. She said, "That's it. See, people are going to relate to a very common phrase, show me the money." And so that's what happened. I just thought, I can do better. So I just changed the title. And then when I said so, when I started the presentation, Joe Dolson immediately went online and changed the title in the lineup for me so that there wouldn't be a conflict. So
awesome.
It was
I just wanted, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanted to add too, because my experience, this might be helpful too to people. I had just started learning about accessibility. So my the primary focus of my talk was to show that just being aware and starting from wherever you are was important. And so I didn't show any code or anything. I just said, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to Google when I need to. I'm going to go to all these meetups. I'm going to do all this stuff. And it works. Just keep getting exposed. So I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
No, that's okay, Alicia, because it's a good example. When people tell me that accessibility is hard to learn, I ask them, did they pop out of bed one morning and they knew how to work WordPress?
Yeah.
Or did they have to learn how to work with WordPress? Or if they started with HTML like I did and then morphed everything into WordPress, did you have another learning curve? There is, an attitude about WordPress that it's very easy to use and that's why people use it. But there still is a learning curve for every single person. And every time you want to make a change in a theme or a design or a layout, there's a learning curve. So accessibility is no different. People that do SEO, there's a learning curve. And my position is just stick all this stuff in your toolbox right from the beginning so that you're not going out to search for it afterwards. And as you learn, like you did, Alicia, each thing you learned became part of your toolbox.
Yeah.
Became part of
now
your...
I consider myself on the level now of providing comfortable accessibility, accessible comforts. Like, for instance, I learned that you can do ARIA label polite in a slideshow if you have to have one, so that it doesn't blurt out what's in the slide while someone's reading something else. It kind of figures out when there's a lull, so it can read what's on the slide. I'm like, well, that's just cool. And so I just like, I couldn't have learned that in the beginning because I didn't even know what ARIA was, but you just keep, it just comes to you. It'll come to you when it needs to. You don't even have to worry about it. How about that?
Well, that's a good point as well, because if you don't know what you don't know what you need an answer to. So as you're working, that question comes up. And for really most of the designers that I have and developers that I have spoken with, it's, okay, this could be better. How can I make it better? And how do I learn to make it better? Regardless of where you are in your abilities, there's always an opportunity to learn something new, to learn something that makes a difference. And accessibility is just part of that.
All right. And the next item up is all of us, like I mentioned, all of us have been impacted and have gone about trying to make change in different ways. And for me, I enjoy the back end of WordPress events. So I was involved as an organizer for WordCamp US recently, and I really wanted to make an impact there. And after the event, there was a tweet from an attendee who said how terrible the venue was at WordCamp US in terms of accessibility. It was at a really posh resort, but it was a 50s style resort. And so there are a few issues or a few challenges in terms of accessibility. And as an organizer, I felt like for me, and my role is a lot of times now, is that I wanted to be that voice in the room so that this time around that won't be an issue. So I went out and did some research and I put together an accessibility checklist for a venue, and I push it up the ladder and they put it on the Make channel. So now it's part of the WordCamp handbook, so that when people are considering doing an event, they should look through this checklist. And again, I mean, there were so many great resources out there, but again, it's just inspired by what Summer's been saying and what everybody's been saying. You can make impacts in little ways. And for me, being in that room, if, like, for instance, I wasn't in the room when they decided on using that venue in San Diego last year, I came on later, but it still impacted me enough to want to make a difference. So and again, I sort of—
It had accessibility issues for anybody who had any able ability of any sort.
But again, a lot of times for these events, they want to, you want to make a decision on a venue right away and get things moving, but you really need to have somebody there that's advocating on behalf. And the one thing that's interesting too about being in this role, like I was involved with Contributor Day and things like that, is that now people are pinging me about stuff, but that's fine. I'm willing to take on that challenge. But again, I wanted to make sure, Sumner, that that I'm still doing stuff behind the scenes, but I still have accessibility at the forefront of what I'm trying to do with WordPress. So also in terms— oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, we always will. Like someone put in here, I'm going to master something. No, you're going to master learning more. That's what you're going to master. You will always learn more.
And it goes back to what Peter was saying, that he wasn't sure how accessibility impacts his apps. But again, a lot of those principles will still apply in the app space. So don't think of it as like this big challenge, but I mean, there's like generally websites fail in a number of different areas, and those areas will probably impact what you do on an app as well. So, all right. And then there were some other things this week. It was, I actually felt bad about putting this in there because I'm not into like salacious headlines, but the purchase of Twitter was a big deal the last couple of days. And so much so that WP Tavern wrote an article about it, and it sort of pulled in a few people in the community to get their opinion on whether they're going to leave or not. I don't know. I was just going to push it out, but like I said, this is sort of not my style to put this on the agenda. But if anyone wanted to talk about their use of Twitter, or if they're going to stay in there, that's fine. If not, we could just move on.
It certainly affected Dogecoin. That's all I'm saying.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Google, we won't go into that conversation.
Okay, good. All right.
Dogecoin.
All right. And then the last item is 6.1 is around the corner. So that means the new, I think 2023 is going to be a part of it. It's usually at the end of the year, they do the big major release. So that's coming. Again, just to circle back, the link to Sally's podcast appearance is as part of the slide deck. Sally, any thoughts on that experience? Had you been on a podcast before?
All credit goes to Joe for setting that up. Thank you. No, I'd done a podcast when COVID first hit with a business coach about what businesses could do during COVID to, you know, keep engaged with their clients. So this was my second one. And it was great. I mean, he just asked, you know, about my experience. And I was just honored that, you know, he wanted to speak to me, because I said it wasn't really my first WordCamp, since I helped on the organizing team for LA and WordCamp, but he said, well, it's in person, so it's your first one, so that counts. I'm like, okay.
I mean, yeah, you've been very active in the WordPress community virtually, but this was your first in person. And yeah. I think I was joking with you. I think the last time we had this meetup, you were much taller than I thought you would be.
And so were you.
Yeah. You're really tall. Yeah, like, I believe
you are. What are you, 6'2"?
6'1".
6'1".
See, I already met Joe in person before we went to virtual, so I already knew how tall he was.
But
everybody was taller. Doug Ryder.
Yeah.
Because we're usually sitting in chairs. So it was an assumption that we're short.
So
or we just see the neck above on screen.
Yeah, but this is a great resource for people that want to learn WordPress. Adam usually talks about plugins. He talks about the latest events that are happening. And a lot of times he'll bring people on that are very active in the community to talk about their products and things like that. So it's a great resource for learning WordPress as well. Again, WordPress Accessibility Day, November 2nd. We're going to be on at 1 p.m. Pacific Coast time.
That actually the first talk or the second talk? It's a start new.
Yeah, I think there's a keynote, another presentation. I think we're third.
Okay.
But again, that's part of what I wanted to talk about today, to preview that panel. It's about Sumner's impact on our community. And I keep drumming that in, and I hope I'm not being very annoying, but but as you know, the last couple of years have been a whirlwind, but the last 5 years have been incredible in terms of what this community has achieved. And it's really, like I said, that one night when I saw you, and I think make sure you tune in on 1 p.m. because what everyone says sort of highlights how there was a moment where the light switch came on when they heard the message and wanted to take that message to others. So we're going to talk a little bit about
that. I think that's the way with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
When you invited me to submit to speak for WordCamp Santa Clarita, my first ever speaking at a WordCamp, I didn't even know what it was. After I gave my talk, I think it was lunch that same day, someone that had been listening to my talk showed me a text on his phone that he had just received from a client asking him about accessibility.
Yeah.
So everybody has that moment when all of a sudden they go, oh, I didn't know what it was. Now I'm hearing about it, and now I need to do something.
Yeah, and it became such a big topic during the pandemic because business, everything shut down and everything had to go online. and you saw like my favorite ramen place. I share this story all the time. My favorite ramen place here in Santa Clarita, it closed down for 3 months because they didn't have any way to do an order online. So they had to hire a website developer and all that kind of stuff just to do that. Or, you know, they would have stupid PDFs up that wouldn't have the phone number to their business, or you just saw how bad or how much people ignored it.
That stupid PDF thing's been going on for decades.
I know restaurants are
It's the same.
notorious for that, but yeah, but it would make you think that, especially after that, and then, you know, there were so many accessibility experts that popped up and wanted to talk about it. But those of us who've been doing the work are happy to see that it's more prominent. But again, it's got to be part of what we all do and how we impact the work that we do. Again, this is the link to the WordPress Organizer Handbook. It's the stuff we've talked about. And again, I passed it on to some of the top folks, and they put it up on the Make channel. So anytime someone's putting together an event, these are some considerations to think about.
Joe, sorry, these links clickable on the slides you're going to share with us?
Yeah, I'll share. Yeah, I'll share with you.
Okay.
Yeah. And also I'll post it on social media afterwards. And as you can tell, this is the title slide and the information on when the event's going to be. It's talking about how you can take the message of accessibility back to your community and grow it. And it just sort of profiles what we've done here in Santa Clarita over the last couple of years. And really, the great thing about this is that I reached out to Sumner about this idea, and she said, hey, you might want to talk to this person and this person. So it's a hearing how she's impacted them personally. And the thing that I found great about it, and I was torn because I wanted to show it to show, like I did a little intro. And of course, I always have these different ideas for the things I do in WordPress. So WordPress Accessibility Day, they were going to have very short topics that were recorded, and everything else was going to be live. But I was like, that doesn't really fit how I want to present this topic. So is it okay for me to pre-record some and then do live talk later? And so they allowed me to do that, which is kind of cool. So the thing that I found when I talked to these people, Sumner, is that there were a couple moments where people got choked up and talking about how you've impacted them. So I hope I got it inside of the video. And I was, like I said, I was going to show the entire thing here, but I want to hold it off because I don't want you to see it until the day up.
You're scaring me, Joe.
What I was going to say, I can, but what I was going to do, I have 3 clips that I'm going to show that are brief, or 2 clips. I wanted to hold one to keep it a surprise. But again, for those that are attending, it's sort of going to give you a flavor for what we're going to talk about.
Can
Go ahead.
Sumner leave the room?
No, he made this preview so that she could see what.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just sort of a couple of clips, but again, it's important when you come back for the panel. Hopefully, everybody will register and check it out and support there. But
I don't
again,
even know what it's going to look like. I'm so curious to see this.
But anyway, so yeah, so I was going to do that today, and then we could sort of discuss more about how you can impact your community, how you can take some of this messages back to what you do in terms of your work. All right, so let me jump out for a minute, and hopefully let me know if you can't hear or can't see. Okay, I'm gonna open this.
Yeah, and it was Sumner brought in such incredible speakers and educators, talking about, we would address one topic and then learn from their perspective, and also have components where we actually brought that work learning into our own website. Able to see this flourishing, how many people that Sumner has inspired and mentored, and I feel really lucky to be in community in this way. So thank you, Sumner, for your tireless education and advocacy. We feel really blessed to have you in our community.
All right, here's the next one. And like I said, the complete discussion, or parts of the complete discussion, will be aired during the event as well.
To people with abilities that are different. And I just wanted to make sure that everything that I can provide on the web is open to anyone's ability, no matter where they are on the spectrum. And I want to thank you so wholeheartedly for that night when a moment a light bulb went on, and it has only gotten brighter and it will never dim. And I want to thank you so much. I love you, and you are a dear friend of mine now. Oh, I'm gonna cry.
And like I said, there's I think 6 or 7 interviews, but these are some clips.
It's no dog. Her invited me was just the first step, and then pretty soon I was getting more information. And now this year I've done a TEDx talk, and I don't think that would have happened without those little nuggets along the way, like someone invited me to her group.
Yeah. So again, let me stop the share. So yeah, so that's basically what we're going to talk. We're going to talk about all these instances. It was sort of our first contacts, if you're into Star Trek, with Sumner. It's that impact with something that changed how your perspective on so many things. So again, hopefully it'll be a way to pay tribute, but also to inspire others to sort of make change. Just seeing those clips, any thoughts from the audience or any other things to add?
I'm just wiping the tears away from my eyes.
Yeah. But anyway.
Oh yeah, and something else to add. This is Lynn. I really appreciated Sumner. I'm visually disabled, but she pointed out there's more than just visual impairment. There's other types of disabilities that I tended not to think about because I focused only on my own. And so she opened me up that, yeah, there's other types to consider, including the temporary disabilities, which I hadn't even thought about. So thank you for that.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Overwhelmed and also humbled that you would spearhead this tribute. I hope that in my journey of sharing accessibility, that by bringing other people into the mix that sometimes know more about an area of accessibility than I do, such as the PDF or certain other things, that hopefully it makes it more approachable that I'm not it. I mean, I love being the it person today here, and I really appreciate the honor, but I'm not the only it. There are so many people that once that light bulb comes on, they become like the other people on this meetup, they become the go-to person as well. And I feel that my objective has always been to be inclusive, to not be the only person in the room that has the answer, and to attempt to deliver information in a way that empowers people to want to learn more, do more, and then become that go-to person as well. Because one person, myself, can only do so much, but when I have an army, we can do a whole lot more.
Yeah, and to me, I wanted to make sure that your legacy is known as far and wide as possible. So yeah, to me, this has just been part of the whole journey for me. It's like when I see someone that, and you know, being a Toastmaster in another lifetime, when I see somebody that's an impactful speaker, I want to share that person with as many people as possible. So it's been a joy to just hear the message and sort of carry it forward. For me personally, I know we've done, and part of the presentation for those that are listening, we've just in that 2 years, we participated in the Nobility Air competition. Sumner recommended me a couple of times to speak. I spoke at the Access U, thanks to Sumner. I spoke to a group earlier this year. Thanks to Sumner, we've done, like I sort of transitioned to more behind the scenes stuff. I wanted to see how I can contribute to WordPress on a bigger scale. So now I'm behind the scenes on the Make WordPress Accessible team. And it's just a learning experience. It goes back to what Alicia was saying. I think I just want to learn as much as possible, but again, make sure that when decisions are made, that someone that's aware of making things a little more accessible, that person is always in the room. So I know that's what your legacy is going to mean to me personally. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I have one. So
Sure.
it occurred to me. So just 2 nights ago, I was talking to someone in Bali, who's she wanted to do graphic design so that I could do the website for a client that I've had for 8 years. And I went and I looked at her stuff, and the developers that she hired, they didn't do page builders, but they were like, did a fast pass, and there's a whole bunch of stuff and contrast. But I was talking to her about accessibility. That was the main thing. And that's the only time I felt comfortable in the conversation, because there's just no way I backtrack on that. You know what I mean? It's like saying the sky's blue and someone wants to argue with me. It was like, I'm pretty obvious that it's blue. And she was really receptive and listening, and she took us like some resources and links. But I did get the sense that most of our clients are from Australia, and they don't tend to care about that right now. But I'm pretty sure there are people in every corner of the world who want to access the web and have like some kind of diff ability that the way the web was designed got in the way. And I just realized after I was talking to her that it's not really that we all focus on the base being someone with the 2 working eyes, can smell, can taste, all the arms are there, can do everything. That's the base we work on. And then every product, no matter what it is, across the board, is done that way. And I just feel like we should be broadening our minds into a spectrum as we develop, and kind of like open it up. And so that like when you decide to do something, just think of, just have that be the base. And that's what's starting to happen. And that's why I really appreciate that I've learned a lot of this stuff, is because when I'm developing, I actually do think like someone who is going to be using a screen reader. Like I literally think from that perspective first, like, oh, they're going to throw everything in the sidebar, or they're going to be doing this, or someone who's deaf. And instead of before thinking from just me as a normal, not normal, but as a person who had those things working. And so that's the thing I think is really valuable, is to come from a perspective of that's broader rather than narrow, because you'll find out there's actually probably more people that don't fit the standard that we designed for.
And to me, and there's been a mention of designers throughout this discussion, and to me, coming from the design world, designers are the worst, because we always design for ourselves, or as developers, we build things that how we feel we would use it, not really how others would use it. So going back to what you said, it's really about designing for the other person, the user. So that's something that it's sort of like you have to give up being selfish in a lot of senses.
And also give up that the user has everything that you feel makes like a person that doesn't have a disability, like that just design knowing that there's people out there that need that. I don't know how it sounds very simple, but it's a perspective that it's a paradigm shift in the way you actually make or do anything in the world. You have to assume that, not just web design.
How would you, for the person that says, oh, this is too difficult, or this is making more work for me, what would be your advice to someone on picking it up and getting started with accessibility? Just people in the audience, or anyone that wants to respond.
Yeah, I already talked, so someone else got an idea. I mean, I can go and say that just you're never going to learn it all, so you might as well get in the river and float with the rest of us, pretty much, and pick it up as you go.
Yeah,
I think my feeling again is that when people understand why it's important and how it affects people, then they can buy in. They can see the reason for doing it. Because sometimes in our mind is going, not looking to do something different. I got my habits, my behaviors, I'm going to do it my way. But when we see how and why and what, and that's why I consistently refer people that do not understand or have not been exposed to accessibility, to refer them to the W3 WAI Foundations of Accessibility free course. It could take 40 hours to watch videos of a blind person attempting to access a website, a person with macular degeneration, which a lot of people don't consider, someone with hearing disability, people with motor disabilities, but actually watch the videos of reality. And these are the people that may not be able to access a website that you've built. And I personally feel that when someone gets that exposure, then they have an opportunity to think and behave differently. But when it's out there, something they've never seen, never been exposed to, don't understand, I think it's difficult for their mind to be wrapped around whatever that is. So that's always where I suggest people to start. And then after that, I also find that when people have a better emotional understanding of accessibility, it's easier to drive their motivation to want to do it.
I know for so long, part of presentations, you would see the companies that have been sued based on accessibility. And, you know, it was sort of a scare tactic to get people to do it, but it's just become way more, it's impacted everybody over the last couple of years because we've all been faced with using sites that haven't been really smart or laid out in a way that anybody could use them, let alone everyone. So yeah, it's a lot more.
When we take a look at what COVID has, how it has changed our world in the past 2 years, it's changed how we want to access the web. For a lot of people, their stress level is so high that when they do search for something, they want it now. And if they get on a website, they want the answer now. They want that link to work. They want to be able to read what's there. They want to be able to hear what's there. And if not, they're gone. And so a lot of people, just based on their own levels of stress, are being able to experience what disabled individuals have been dealing with for years and years, well, for their lifetime, really. And it makes for better web for everyone when we think about being inclusive. It really does. And everyone will have their light bulb moment. They'll have that aha of, oh, okay, this is how to do it. And when you bring up lawsuits, I'm one of the few people that don't like to lead with that, but it does come up in conversations and it does come up in presentations towards the end. And as a clarification, Australia had the very first accessibility lawsuit in the year 2000, when a blind person was trying to follow the Olympics and couldn't even access the Olympic website. Since then, they have just increased by huge percentages because they have the trolls that know how simple it is to find a website that isn't accessible and they can do what they do. And now that people are placing the overlays on websites, the trolls know that that little icon is like, hey, I didn't do the work, I'm faking it. And they're going after those websites too for intentionally putting that on there. Companies are getting irritated because they trusted their web designer and their trust got broken, they feel, and they're going after the web designer. So that is the dirty side of it. That's the downside of not making your site accessible from the start. I don't like to focus on the dirty side and the downside, but it's reality. It's really there. So if you're not motivated by your heart, be motivated by your pocketbook and the reputation of your organization.
Thank you. I know, and during this discussion, we also mentioned that from time to, we're all eventually going to become disabled. And for me personally, I've had, I had a rotator cuff surgery. I had a heart event. So there were 3 distinct moments in the last 5 years where I was technically disabled. And in one of my presentations, I talked about how I tried to order groceries at Vons online, and it was such a difficult experience because I couldn't drive to the market. And if it was difficult for me, a person who builds websites for a living, just imagine that the person that's using an assistive device or something like that. So it's really imperative, especially when you see big companies have such terrible efforts in terms of building sites. So there's so much work out there, especially for those of us on the line that do this for a living.
Well, great that you brought that there's so much work. There are, all the time, I'm seeing people that are posting in various groups or sending me emails. I can't convince this client. How do I convince this client? And my answer usually is next. If you look at WebAIM, I know it sounds cold, didn't it, Larry? if you look at the web
Lynn is always encountering big companies' websites where she has great difficulty using her screen reader. You know, it happens all the time.
well, here's my feeling, and it goes back to my feeling, you know, if you have an army, a squad that's out there really making sites accessible, you go for those that are willing to do the work first, and those that aren't, they're going to come around either because somebody gave them a good wake-up call emotionally or financially. But if you spend your time attacking one client, trying to convince them, not only is it frustrating for you, but you're losing out on those clients that are ready. And when WebAIM, a company we're most familiar with, and their acronym means Web Accessibility in Mind, for those that didn't know that and just continually say WebAIM, they do a analysis every year of the top websites, top million websites, just the homepage. And when they come in with 92% of those websites have failures, that's an opportunity for us as designers to work with that 92%. So if someone is really giving me a hard time, I don't have the patience for trying to convince them that they need to do this when there is a line of companies that desperately need that assistance and definitely need that correction. So my feeling is, if I have to convince you, I will give you all the information. I will do my best to educate you. And if that's not enough to motivate you, I'm going to the next person in line, because I want to make the biggest impact I can, and spending 50% of my time on one person versus 50% of my time sorted out between a whole bunch. I got to go where the numbers are to make the bigger impact. So don't frustrate yourself trying to convince people that have made their position that they don't want to be convinced. If they come around, when they come around, they'll do it on their terms and they'll be ready.
Awesome. Thanks, Sumner. Any other comments? It looks like, of course, we've run out of time. So what I'll do is I'll either next Saturday we can follow up and do like a quick intro to color, a follow up there, as well as answer any questions that people may have regarding what we talked about today. Again, the event is next Friday. In terms of the color topic, I was just going to do a quick overview, because color is one of the easy ways that you can, I shouldn't say easy ways, one of the ways that you can really have an impact on how people use your site. So knowing like the basics of color, I was going to talk about a couple of tools that you can use easily, like mentioned earlier. Sumner mentioned WebAIM. They also have a great color contrast checker. Also, there's a couple of free browser tools that you can run on the sites that you're using. So we'll talk about that, as well as a couple of examples. Like the example I always love to use is, I don't know how many folks are sports fans, but the NFL came up with this great idea to do color rush uniforms, which was their way to actually sell more uniforms. So it was really with, making more money in mind, but it wasn't really thought out properly. And there was one night between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets where they played. And for someone that was colorblind, it looked like everyone had the same uniform on. So I was going to talk about how, we make decisions on color that really impact other people, and how you can, if you just do some basic things when you're building along the way from the start, you'll be able to make a great impact on that. So we'll talk about that next time. And again, I apologize for not getting to it, but I felt like it was important that we sort of talk a little bit about how our community has grown, the things that we try to do in terms of spreading accessibility and the message of accessibility throughout WordPress, and to really pay tribute to Sumner's legacy here in the North Valleys. So with that, I'll open it up to comments one more time. And then, like I said, I'll send out a meetup invite for next Saturday so we can follow up on the second half of what I promised in this meetup. And then again, next Friday, join us for WordPress Accessibility Day. Those tickets are free.
Wait, next Friday?
It's
Yeah,
Wednesday,
November
July.
2nd. Yeah, I think it's
That's
November.
not Friday.
Ooh. Is it Thursday? Thursday and Friday?
I think it's actually
Wednesday.
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 I lost 2 days.
Well, we're going to show up on Friday, Joe.
I know, we'll all be there. I
It
won't
is
be there.
kind of weird.
Like, what happened to our moderator?
It's kind of weird though. to have it in, I thought it was gonna be on Thursday to Friday.
I
like-
think we did it middle of the week last, in 2020, right, Joe?
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
and just between us being on the other end, there's a push within organizers in the community to make sure that all WordPress events happen during the week and not on the weekend, which I don't really understand. But
What?
yeah, they want to make it more like a business conference, which I don't really get. To me, the
Are you
beauty of
doing
WordPress
WordCamp?
is that it's on the weekend when you're free to
Not
go.
WordCamps.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean. They're like, for instance, next year's WordCamp US is going to be Monday through Friday. It's not going to
No,
be.
it's not.
Hmm.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, like,
Or is our jobs gonna pay us to miss work? Oh, well, I guess
I
we're
was
gonna
gonna say, if you're self-employed, you just like lost all of that contact time, or if you're working with clients like I do.
Well, then I
So-
guess it'd be good to give them the feedback, wouldn't it?
oh, definitely. And
Mm.
what's probably going to happen is that, like this year, the difference is that they're going to split it into two. There's going to be because the last 2 years have been, everyone's had a lot of difficulties, and especially in the WordPress community, a lot of meetups have stopped, a lot of WordCamps have stopped. They're going to have a community summit, which I think they've had 3 or 4 other times in various places around the world, where they're just going to talk about, hey, how can we make WordPress or improve in these certain problem areas. So that's going to be an invite only. So that's going to be Monday and Tuesday. Then the other 2 days are going to be the traditional WordCamp with community contributor day and stuff like that. So if I have my say, we'll make sure that
Yeah,
the
because
US
even driving
is
is
pushed
better
further back in the week.
is less.
Yeah. Say again?
Driving to the WordCamp, the whole thing, having it be on the weekend makes it more sense.
Yeah. And that's,
Maybe
that's
people
behind
know.
this. Yeah, that's behind the scenes discussion. One person said it really should be seen as a business conference, which I don't really agree with.
One person.
Business
knows.
conferences are on weekends all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
One
I
person-
have a number of conferences that were hybrid in the last few months, and they were all started Friday, ended Sunday. All of them, and they're business conferences, the legal conferences. There's a legal conference on accessibility coming up. It's Friday through Sunday.
I think this is like a no mention because he said one person. They're gonna. They
Well,
better.
but just
Everybody
think,
be mad. If it's Matt,
this is like the lead team, so it's 5 of us.
Are they
So-
all retired? They don't have anything else to do during the
Yeah.
week?
Yeah,
I mean,
sounds like-
students,
Oh, I
they
agree.
can't do
I
anything.
agree. I agree. So hopefully I'll be able to push back WordCamp US, but to at least have it on one day during the weekend. So,
Well, I can't go anyway because I'm going to Burning Man. But anyway.
all right. Any other comments, Larry? What do you think about seeing this part of the whole history? Or I see Oren jumped on late. Welcome in, Oren.
I think it was great. I mean, I know that we were supposed to talk about color, but this was a really good session today, and I thoroughly, got a lot out of it. So I'm into flexibility and improvisation. So it's all good to me. This was very good today. Thank you.
All right. Any other thoughts? Eagle or Peter? Again, I apologize for not being able to get around to the second half of the title, but like I said, we'll do a make good next week. Are there any questions that we could address specifically during the upcoming meetup that you didn't get to find out about today?
No, I'm cool.
No, I look forward to the next one.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question for the WordPress Accessibility Day panel. Do you want us to wear any particular t-shirts, since some of us now have collections?
Well, it's up to everyone what they want to wear. I'm not the person to tell somebody what to wear. It would be nice if we all had the same shirt, but nah.
Or at least a WordPress camp that we had on.
I know, or
Like 20 different.
I don't
Oh,
know.
I got one more thing. Some of those Color Rush NFL uniforms are ugly.
But it just shows that no one was in the room and said, hey, 8% of guys are colorblind. Why would you have 2 colors that are seen as the same color?
That's
Out of
certainly not
the-
understanding your target market, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're
When
supposed to.
the predominant amount of audience that watches the sports team are men, and then men are the highest with the percentage of color blindness. And televisions do not adjust color as well as you can do on a computer. And that's why they have standards on television that we don't have online. Somebody wasn't thinking for sure.
Yeah.
Out of the 4 brothers that share my DNA, all of them are colorblind. So
well,
I have a brother that's he's a DevOps engineer for working in Kubernetes, and he actually has to install a third-party app onto his computer to show him all the links, because if it's designated by color, he may not see it.
I don't think of the recent,
Perfect example.
yeah, the design trend of a few years ago where all links were that medium gray, which was totally unusable.
I'm going round and round with a client right now who just wants to like have it a different color. And I'm like, you know, I understand that underlining wasn't in vogue, but I think it's going to come back around.
Or not not underlining links was a trend, which is sort of stupid too.
That's what I was trying to say. But I'm like, can we underline these links, because making them bold doesn't go into the design either, because they've got all sorts of bold stuff in the design. And I'm like, how I can't even find the links on the page, you know, but I'm begging them to underline.
And in the panel presentation that I pre-recorded, there was a Sumner story that someone mentioned about colorblind business owners. Would you mind sharing that, Sumner?
I have a client, still my client actually, wanted to make some changes on his website. And I said, no, these colors can't work because they're not accessible. This is what I want. And what I want is what I get. I mean, it's kind of that kind of thing. I said, well, okay, look, I'll play along. Let me walk around your office with you with my laptop and let's show it to the various people and let's get some input. I mean, you're still right. You still get to make the final decision, but let's get some feedback. So we walked around and a few members of the staff kind of sort of gave an opinion. And then we walked into his partner and I started with, hey, we're going to redesign these colors and we need your input. He goes, don't ask me, I'm colorblind. So it would have meant that this particular partner in the organization would not even have been able to see the website. So, you know, it's a hidden disability. You don't know if that's the case with someone, and it could be someone that's your partner.
And sometimes it's hidden to them. They don't know. And they thought, till someone points it out that they were colorblind too. So that's happened a lot. Men go into adulthood,
you know, people with disabilities have the same right to privacy as anybody else. So if they don't want to tell you they're colorblind, or they don't want to tell you they're deaf, or they don't want to tell you they have a cognitive disability, it's their right to not have to tell you. So for people that say, well, they should have told me, no, let's just be inclusive from the start. So this particular client has become way on board. He's one of my loudest, well, probably only second to Joe, one of my loudest cheerleaders.
So cool. That's because they saw a real person.
Yeah.
That's the key, is seeing a real person have to deal with your stuff. And
Sometimes that's exactly what it takes.
It's like, I don't want to be a perpetrator. You know, it's like, it's just, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to anybody.
And you hear that so often, you know, that's an excuse that we hear. It's like, my client wants this, my client wants this. Sometimes they're really hard-headed, but you got to try to show them. You got to try to show them.
Does the client want to get sued? I want to add a little bit on to my brothers. I used to get a very deep discount at a mall retailer. I worked for the parent company, and I would go shopping for them. And there was a trend where you wore a t-shirt under a striped shirt. It was like this Paul Smith inspired trend. I put them all in hot pink t-shirts with like bright paisleys and stripes. And they were always saying, oh, people comment all the time. So my brothers are a full foot taller than I am and 100 pounds on me. Big boys in hot pink. So, you know,
you're brave.
I'm the oldest. I can get away with it.
I was gonna say, and they never knew anything.
They didn't know. They don't understand what hot pink is.
Yeah.
What color do they see, Shannon? I mean, can they tell you what it looks like to them?
My one brother sees hot pink as like rotten limes. You know, the brown that rotten limes are?
Ooh, yeah.
And it's not, with a couple of them, it's not all shades that they're colorblind. They're not seeing shades of gray. They're seeing reversals maybe.
Yeah. There's certain types of color blindness. Like there's a number of different ones. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Last night, that was
Go ahead,
Lots
Shaza.
of-
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay. Lots of fun for me because I love seeing them in like brightly striped paisley. Oh, and
You're
I'm
funny.
talking, I was in my 40s, so they were like in their 30s. And every time I'd come into town, they're like, can we go shopping? People really love the outfits you put me in. And I would write on the insides of the t-shirts. I made a little code that like Garanimals had when I was growing up. I made them codes so they could put the t-shirts with the shirts. So maybe the t-shirt was A and it went with all the number 2s or 3s
What a
or
nice
whatever.
sister you are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So next week we'll talk a little bit more about how color can really impact your sites. You were going to say something, Summer. I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, the only thing, from here, what would you suggest that people do from here with this type of information, Joe? Because when I gave a presentation at Riverside and you listened to me, I asked for audience questions. And the first question that you asked, which was the closing question, is where do you go from here? Where do you take this information from here? And my suggestion, and then I'll come back to you, my suggestion is start looking around your own environment and what you're doing and where you're going and see what's different. See what you didn't notice before. See what convenience you have. See what difficulties you have. Just take a different look.
And I would just add on to that. I mean, just look at your own website. That could be the first place. If you don't have somewhere to practice, just practice on your own blog and you'll see how you've designed it before versus after hearing this message. So, yeah. Wow. All right. So I think we'll wrap it at this point. And again, tune in on the 2nd. I'm not going to say what day it is, but yeah, to hear the panel. What I'll also do is I've already put the video up on our YouTube channel and I've captioned it. So I'm going to premiere that the morning of if people want to look at it, or I could share it with our group and just make sure it's unlisted or private if people want. But I would say I want it to be a surprise.
No.
I want it to be a surprise.
Yeah, let's
So,
do
yeah,
it on
so-
the day. It's like Christmas.
Yeah. I'll premiere it on the day so everybody can look at it and have it for reference also.
Are they going to do a test a production test? So
Well, you
that
know what?
they
I
may-
need to.
I didn't get any information whether
I
or
was
not
gonna say I haven't
we're gonna have
either.
that.
I haven't either. So
Okay.
I'll send a message today. I know they sent a message about what was going to happen and where it was going to be at, but they didn't have any specifics because usually when they're going to use StreamYard, I believe.
Mhm.
And usually they have to have a run through so that speakers
Yeah.
who aren't familiar with that platform know what to do and know how to click in and beyond. And especially
Maybe
for
they're
us.
only talking to people who've
Say
never
again?
done it. Maybe they're only reaching out to people who've never done it before.
Yeah, but every
to me-
time it still doesn't hurt to do a pre-check.
Yeah, and I was going to say for us, it's like 5 of us jumping on at the same time. So that's probably a little different too. So I
And
want
if
to,
you recall last time, I was the one that couldn't get on.
yeah. So what I'll send a message to Joe today and ask.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming on. And I'm excited about this panel because again, everyone in this community knows how important you are, but your impact, Sumner, is going to be felt around the entire planet. Awesome. All right.
I'm humbled. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for stopping by. Again, next Saturday, we'll do our introduction to color and we'll do some more WordPress stuff. Also coming up, the general Black Friday thing is always a good topic in our meetup, as well as some other things in relation to 6.1. So we'll see you. Have a good Saturday. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later.
And a happy Halloween to all.
Oh, thank you.